This is a podcast about understanding counseling and how it works in everyday life. In this episode, we'll explore why some roles people occupy in everyday life feel heavier than others, even when they're familiar or chosen willingly. Most people move through many roles without thinking much about them. Professional roles, family roles, social roles. You show up, do what's needed, and move on. Over time, though, some roles begin to feel weightier than others. What makes a role feel heavy isn't usually the tasks involved, it's the emotional responsibility attached to it. Some roles quietly require you to be alert all the time. You're expected to notice what needs doing without being asked. You're the one who remembers, checks in, follows up, or keeps things running smoothly. The role doesn't announce itself, but it's there. Because the role is familiar, the effort often goes unnoticed. You don't think of yourself as carrying something extra. You just feel tired more easily, or less patient, or less able to switch off. This happens a lot in family roles. One person becomes the organizer, another becomes the emotional stabilizer, someone else becomes the reliable one who doesn't need support. These roles form gradually, often because they work. The difficulty is that once a role is established, it's rarely questioned. Expectations settle around it. Other people adjust. Over time, the person in the role may feel less able to step out of it without disruption. Work roles can operate in the same way. You might be the person others rely on to handle pressure, solve problems, or smooth tensions because you're capable. More responsibility lands with you, not formally, but informally. What makes this draining is that emotional responsibility doesn't switch off at the end of the day. Even when tasks are done, awareness remains active. You may still be thinking ahead, anticipating needs, or preparing for what might come next. This links closely to what we explored in the previous episode about environments. Some roles demand constant adjustment to context. You're reading people, managing expectations, and staying flexible. That flexibility costs energy. Another reason roles feel heavy is that they often leave little room for uncertainty. You're expected to know, to decide, to hold things together. When uncertainty appears, it can feel destabilizing because a role depends on steadiness. People often judge themselves harshly for finding these roles tiring. They tell themselves they chose them or that others have it worse. But tiredness here isn't a failure, it's a response to sustained emotional demand. Counseling helps people recognize roles not as identities but as patterns. When a role is seen clearly, it becomes possible to relate to it differently. Not necessarily to abandon it, but to understand what it asks and what it costs. Often the first shift isn't behavioral, it's perceptual. People realize that what they've been carrying has a name. That recognition alone can reduce confusion and self blame. Over time, people may begin to notice when they're stepping into a role automatically rather than intentionally. That noticing creates space, it allows for pauses, for recognition, and for rest. Understanding why certain roles feel heavy helps explain why exhaustion can appear even when life looks manageable from the outside. It reframes tiredness as information rather than weakness. In the next episode, we'll keep building on this by looking at how responsibility and expectation interact over time and why some forms of responsibility become emotionally costly even when they're never spoken about.